Martha Jennings first noticed it one Tuesday morning when she couldn't remember why she had opened the fridge. The eggs sat on the top shelf, untouched. The butter was exactly where it always was. Yet she stood there, blankly staring inside, until the hum of the refrigerator pulled her back to the present. She chuckled to herself, brushed it off as one of those senior moments, and went about her day. But it wasn't the last time. A few days later, her daughter Ellie came to visit. As they sat down for tea, Martha brought up a story she had already told just an hour earlier, nearly word for word. Ellie smiled politely, but concern flickered in her eyes. "Mom," she asked gently, "do you remember telling me that already?" Martha frowned. "No, are you sure?" These were the early whispers of something much bigger, though neither of them would say it out loud. Yet. Over the following weeks, other small, troubling signs began to appear. She misplaced her house keys more than once. Not just the usual forgetfulness, but finding them later in strange places. The freezer, inside a potted plant, once in the medicine cabinet. She began struggling to follow simple conversations, sometimes losing the thread entirely mid-sentence. She would laugh it off, saying she was tired or distracted. But Ellie had started keeping a list. By the time Martha got lost driving to the supermarket she had visited every week for 30 years, her family could no longer ignore the growing evidence. She had called Ellie in tears, parked on a quiet street in the wrong part of town. "I just turned left like always," she whispered into the phone. But nothing looked familiar. When Ellie arrived, Martha was sitting in the driver's seat with her hands folded in her lap, staring blankly ahead. That moment became the turning point. The signs were no longer subtle. It wasn't just memory loss. Martha also began showing signs of confusion with time. She asked if Christmas was next week in the middle of June. She didn't know what day it was or whether she'd already eaten lunch. When Ellie brought her to the doctor, Martha introduced her own daughter as an old friend from school. The doctor listened quietly as Ellie described the behaviors, her voice trembling. Martha, meanwhile, seemed more annoyed than concerned. She insisted she felt fine and didn't understand what all the fuss was about. The tests followed: memory recall, simple arithmetic, a drawing test. Then the neurologist sat them both down. "It's early-stage dementia," he said, "but we've caught it sooner than many do." Martha blinked, trying to absorb the weight of the word. Dementia. The doctor explained that dementia isn't just one disease, but a general term for a decline in mental ability severe enough to interfere with daily life. Alzheimer's was the most common form, and the signs, he said, had been showing themselves for a while. Memory loss was the most obvious, but there were others. Many people missed them at first. Difficulty planning or solving problems, trouble completing familiar tasks, confusion with time or place, difficulty understanding visual images and spatial relationships, problems with words in speaking or writing, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps, decreased or poor judgment, withdrawal from work or social activities, and perhaps most subtle, changes in mood or personality. Ellie realized then how many of those signs they had dismissed over the past year. Martha's bills had gone unpaid more than once. She had stopped going to her book club, claiming it had gotten boring. She had been quicker to snap at Ellie and the grandchildren over small things. And she had started repeating herself, not just occasionally, but often. Back home, Martha sat quietly on her favorite armchair, the house suddenly feeling too big, too silent. Ellie brewed her another cup of tea and sat on the couch beside her. "So, what happens now?" Martha asked eventually. "We take it one day at a time," Ellie replied. "We find ways to help you manage." "You're not alone." They began building new routines. Labels were added to cupboards. Notes appeared on the fridge. A calendar with big, bold reminders sat in the kitchen. Ellie visited daily. Martha's brother, George, came by twice a week. They set up medication reminders and adjusted the lighting in the house to reduce confusion. And something else happened, too. The more they acknowledged the dementia, the more they noticed others around them struggling in silence. Neighbors, friends, even distant relatives. One woman from church, Sarah, confided to Ellie that her husband had been forgetting names for months and had stopped recognizing their grandchildren. Another friend admitted he didn't know where to turn when his wife started confusing day and night. People were afraid to talk about it. They ignored the early signs, brushed off the forgetfulness, the mood swings, the moments of confusion, until it was too late to make a meaningful difference. Ellie began volunteering at a local support group. She told Martha's story, carefully with permission. And the message was always the same: don't ignore the early signs. The earlier dementia is detected, the more time families have to plan, adapt, and preserve quality of life. Treatments can help slow progression. Routines can be established. Most importantly, people can hold on to moments of clarity, of connection, for longer. Martha's condition didn't reverse, of course, but she adjusted. Some days were worse than others. There were nights when she grew agitated, unable to sleep. There were mornings when she didn't recognize the living room. But there were also good days. Days when she laughed, when she remembered old songs, when she told stories from her youth with startling clarity. One afternoon, while flipping through a photo album, she paused on a picture of Ellie at age 7. "You were wearing your birthday dress," she said, pointing. "We had cake with blue icing. You cried when the balloon popped." Ellie blinked back tears. "You remember that?" Martha nodded. "Not always, but right now I do." They sat in silence for a long while, side by side, sharing the weight of memory, fragile, fleeting, but still alive. Because even as dementia tightened its grip, the essence of who Martha was lingered in those flickers of memory, in the warmth of her touch, in the stories that still surfaced from the depths. The signs had been there, and they had listened, just in time.